All set? Ooh, that's loud. Hello, everyone. It is 6:01, and so we will call the business meeting of the North Kingstown School Committee to order. The first item on the agenda today is to go into executive session pursuant to RIGL 42464 for discussion of number 2, sessions pertaining to potential litigation/legal advice and collective bargaining pursuant to RIGL 42465A2, NEA and NK negotiations, John Doe 42 and Parent Doe 42 versus NKSD CA, number NO, PC 2022-0220, John Doe 23 and Mother Doe 23 and Father Doe 23 versus North NKSC CA NO, PC 2022-03122, RIGL 42265A2. So that we have a motion. To have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of going into executive session?
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll be back.
Test, test.
Okay, we're going to resume back from executive session, and so the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join me if you can.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Roll call.
Erin Earl.
Here.
Robert Case.
Here.
Jennifer Hoskins. Jennifer Lima. Thomas Bryety.
Here.
Christine LaPierre. Gabe Anthony.
Thank you. And Ms. Lima and Ms. Hoskins both send their apologies that they are unable to attend this evening, but because our school committee is a size of 5, we do have quorum and are able to continue with our business meeting. Next item on the agenda is the calendar.
The next two school committee business meeting are Tuesday, June 6th and Tuesday, June 20th. We have a subcommittee meeting for the DEI subcommittee on Monday, May 22nd. And we also have school committee office hours on Tuesday, May 23rd. That will be at Wickford Middle School at 5 p.m. That includes a tour of the middle school and then office hours at 6.
Thank you. Okay, next up is item E, presentations and recognitions. And so we'll invite Sandra up first to hear more about the teacher fellowship.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Good evening, school committee. Thank you so much for inviting me here. I am so honored to share about my upcoming expedition to Antarctica with Lindblad Expeditions and National Geographic Society as a Grosvenor Fellow. I was selected from hundreds of applicants to learn from naturalists on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity on board a ship that will spend nearly 2 weeks at sea. I've recently returned from a weekend training session in Washington, D.C., where I was educated on Antarctica's geography. I participated in photography workshops to help my photography techniques, and also participated in workshops that helped to train me on packing tips. I plan to bring my students along via my blog, which is Footsteps Across the Planet, and that will also include shout-outs to particular student questions along with posted videos. Upon returning, I hope to develop new lessons focusing in on Antarctica, climate change, and the role this continent plays in the international community. And again, I'm very honored and I'm so proud to represent North Kingstown School District on this opportunity. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that, and congratulations on that. And we very much look forward to following the blog and seeing the pictures upon your return, and how lucky for our students that they get to virtually go along with you on that journey. Next on the agenda is the Student Awards winner for RI First Tech Challenge Robotics Championship. And so I will invite up, I believe, Rick, are you coming up for that one? Awesome.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us here tonight. I would like to acknowledge both Zach DiBiase and Stephen Bousserick, both who are members of the robotics team here at North Kingstown High School. Both Zach and Stephen were selected as recipients of the Dean's List Award for the state of Rhode Island. This is only 3 members of the entire state are given this award each and every year. And as a result, we're eligible to represent the state of Rhode Island at the World Championships, which were held in Houston, Texas in April. The Dean's List Award is given to students who best demonstrate technical expertise and passion in the field of robotics, exhibit a passion and show a long-term interest in the FIRST philosophy, and demonstrate leadership and commitment to the FIRST core values. So I'd like to present Zach and Stephen.
Congratulations. I'm going to come down, Zach and Steve, and have you all stand here, and I'll take a picture with you all. And so congrats. And I've actually met you both, I think, because I brought my 7-year-old to your winter event here at the high school, and you were both very nice, I remember. So thank you. Okay, so again, congratulations. So next up, we're going to continue with the theme of STEAM, and we're going to hear from Rick to talk about the 2023 STEAM or STEM camp proposal. So go ahead, Rick.
Thank you. Over the past couple of years, the members of the high school robotics teams have expressed interest in running STEM-related activities for students in both North Kingstown and Jamestown at the elementary and middle school levels. Last summer, we held a one-week robotics camp that was aimed at middle school students, and this year we ran a series of monthly STEM nights that alternated between elementary and middle school theme, and that's what you were, Dr. O, were mentioning earlier. All of the events were popular. Many of them filled up within minutes upon the registration opening. And so with that, we want to expand our offerings to offer a summer STEM camp. The summer STEM camp that we are proposing to run will be a 3-week program where students can attend a series of week-long sessions. And the sessions would be run by the high school students where the students would get exposed to different STEM-related fields using a hands-on approach. And again, as I said, these activities would be run by the members of the high school robotics team. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mallory Shields and Zach DiBiase. They are the two main planners for the event, and we would like to have this opportunity to answer any questions that you may have for us.
Thank you so much. Hi, Mallory. And so I will turn it over to the school committee to see if they have any questions. No, I don't think we have any questions, but so exciting that you all are pursuing this, and we think it's fantastic that younger students in the district are going to have an amazing opportunity to learn more. And so thank you so much for that, and we look forward to hearing more about it. Thank you. Okay. I actually am going to make a motion to move item 7 to next, which would be the Barton Gilman presentation, and then next after that moving item 6 to which is the financial audit presentation to be the second one, so that our guests can go first. So I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So if you don't mind, Barton Gilman will have you up next. And thank you so much to Shivali and Rob for your patience.
Yeah, we are. You gotta go down there. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. My name is Taino Palermo. It's my colleague, Stephanie Gonzalez. We're from Barton Gilman. Let's see. All right, it's a finicky court. All right, we are here to just speak briefly about our community input gathering survey that we're going to conduct. Can you hear me? Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. I'll hold it. All right. Is that better? Okay. So, again, Taino Palermo. my colleague Stephanie Gonzalez. We are from Barton Gilman, and we are conducting the community input gathering survey for the district. Just as a little bit of context, the community gathering survey is really meant to provide the community with an avenue for insight and input into ways to expand the awareness and understanding of Title IX and other non-discrimination anti-harassment policies, and to effectuate kind of a shift in the culture across the district to just elevate the awareness, prioritize the prevention of all forms of discrimination and harassment, and educate the community in the process. And so our point is to translate all this data into a series of trainings and workshops, working with the district to deliver to the school community, to all the stakeholders. And so this is going to happen across 3 phases, relatively quickly. The first phase is going to be just internally deciding with the district what's the best software mechanism and survey mechanism, as well as developing the prompts, which we are in the process of doing with the district. The second phase will be the rollout, the community rollout for the dissemination of the survey. And then the third phase will be working with the district to analyze the data to inform productive and effective trainings. And so ideally we will work through these 3 phases through the summer and align with professional development around August and thereafter, because it'll be an ongoing process. So this is the timeline, a little bit more concrete that I just described of the 3 phases. And so you can see we are actively trying to wrap up phase 1 now, and we'll be hopefully getting this survey out to the community through the end of the school year into a little bit of the summer, and then take the rest of the summer to analyze that data with the district and start working on some trainings. And then that's it. Just point of clarification, the survey will be optional. We will incorporate accessibility options, different languages, hard copies, as well as ADA compliant things for hard of hearing, deaf, things like that. So we're going to cover all those bases as well, and we'll work with the district. So, is that it? Anything else? So, any questions?
Great, thank you so much. I'll turn over to the school committee. Do you all have any questions for the consultants?
Thank you for your presentation. Your last slide referenced a timeline, and the 4th segment, which referred to, I wasn't able to read it quickly enough. I was just hoping you could clarify. Are you expecting to complete this work by the end of the summer?
Yes.
Okay. So that would be before the school year begins?
Before the next school year.
Yes.
20, yes. Well, we'll conduct the survey by that point.
Okay.
Work with the district towards the end of the summer to turn that into trainings and workshops, and then that process will be a formative process because.
Hi, thank you for that presentation. Just to clarify, so people who decide to opt in and fill out this, it'll be totally anonymous?
Yes, it will be. That'll be the baseline. If they choose to self-identify, they can.
Okay.
But it will be anonymous.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the presentation. And just to clarify, this is in addition to this information, which is specifically looking at what would be useful for the community for trainings. You'll also be referencing the prior reports that were done and different things like that to inform the trainings as well, and obviously laws that we need to comply with as a district, correct?
Correct. Yeah. We have the previous data that was collected. And, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then another question I had is just about kind of the communication plan, like how will folks know about the survey and what information, like when will we be kind of sending that out?
Yeah, we're going to work with the group that the district has engaged, Advocacy Solutions, and those folks. So we're going to be very intentional about how that's promoted, where it's promoted, and so that will be informed between us and the district.
Okay, perfect. I don't have any other questions. Do you all? Okay, thank you very much, and we look forward
Thank
to
you.
working with you on this. We will just stay down here. I believe Kyle Connors is here from Markham, and so we will invite him up to the podium.
Hi, good evening. I apologize, I don't have a laptop. I had a presentation generated, but didn't know I needed to bring a computer for it, so. Oh, do we have it right here? Perfect. Do you know if it's been preloaded? We're good? Okay, sorry
Okay,
about that.
nope, no worries. We'll just resume from recess. And so again, we have Kyle Connors here from Arkham. So go ahead with the financial and audit presentation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here this evening. We're going to walk through the school department's 2022 audited financial statements. Certainly feel free to ask any questions along the way. I'll be happy to help. This is not going as expected. All right, hopefully second time's a charm. I just want to note before we get into it, just the communications that we received from the finance team at the school department has historically and has continued to be great. Working with Gail and her team during the financial statement portion of the audit, and as she departed, working with Elle as we continued with UCOA and the single audit. Just a great group of people to work with, great communication. Really haven't been any hiccups in getting our reports done. All right, better. So again, please feel free to ask questions either now or certainly at the end of the presentation. So for fiscal 22, the school's unrestricted fund ended with assigned fund balance, which is funds that are assigned for educational purposes, of $6.9 million, and that represents just over 9.5% of the school department's operating budget. Of that 6.9, $1.2 million was earmarked for stipends to be paid in fiscal 23, which I think is important to note. Your fund balance in that unrestricted fund increased by $1.7 million in fiscal 22. Revenue was favorable compared to the budget by just under $600,000, the majority of which was related to tuitions, which are historically challenging to budget for. So tuition revenue was higher than what was anticipated by $423,000. Expenditures were $1.3 million below appropriations, split pretty evenly amongst salaries, fringe, professional services, and supplies and materials. For fiscal 22, the school department received and spent $1.2 million in federal ESSER funds, which were new grants to the school department in fiscal 22. And I also do want to point out that the school lunch fund recognized a net increase in its net position of just under $1 million to bring its net position to $2.1 million. The reason I want to make sure I bring that to your attention is typically USDA has monitored these balances, and they prefer it to be anywhere from 3 to 4 months of operational costs, which would be in the range of $500,000 to $600,000. The goal would be hopefully not to get that money clawed back, but to spend it on favorable uses for the school department. So I don't know what that balance is for fiscal 23, but certainly something to look into. Just to give you a quick glance of the school department's unrestricted fund balance, dating back to what I have here, which is 2017. It's grown quite a bit. I do want to point out that 2022 on the far left does include the $1.2 million that was earmarked for the stipends. It's grown a bit. It's been pretty common among school departments throughout COVID. There's just certain costs that haven't been happening that would have been expected to. Transportation costs certainly being one of the larger ones when the schools were shut down. So we have seen fund balance grow a bit throughout the state for school departments. The school participates in 2 pension plans. Both are with the state. The teacher retirement plan, which is funded at 66.5%, and the MERS general employee plan, funded just under 90%. They give you a balance that you need to provide them every year. You wouldn't want to give them more. You could give them more, but they probably wouldn't. They wouldn't take it. So the plans are funded throughout the state combined. So it's not like you have a significant amount of control over whether that teacher retirement plan should be funded higher or lower. The school also has its own OPEB plan, which has a liability in fiscal 22 of $500,000, which was a decrease of $34,000 compared to the prior year. Recommendations. From an internal control standpoint, we didn't have significant recommendations to bring to your attention. However, we do want to make sure that we continue to recommend cybersecurity training on an annual basis for staff and committee members. As I'm sure you've read in the news, school departments are subject to malware attacks, ransomware attacks, very heavily right now. So we highly recommend reaching out to your cybersecurity liability insurance provider, working with them to make sure that you have the appropriate trainings for staff and for committee members. And then we also recommend performing vulnerability testing. We've worked with a lot of entities who thought their systems were fantastic. They had a vulnerability test and realized that there were some areas where they could be subject to some significant risks. So, from a compliance perspective, we selected 2 programs this year to be tested as major: the Child Nutrition Cluster and the ESSER funds, as I spoke of earlier. We tested them to make sure they were used for allowable costs, to make sure that reporting to the state was done appropriately and timely. They were spent within the correct period. So I'm happy to report that we did not note any non-compliance on testing for those 2 programs. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much for that presentation, and we'll turn over to Mr. Brady for a question.
Mr. Karna, part of your analysis, if I remember correctly, was about the school lunch fund, and apparently we're running at a positive balance at this point. The General Assembly is presently considering legislation that is going to create, basically by statute, require that all school districts provide free lunches to students. Has your firm, or have you done anything to evaluate that and what the impact might be on this community?
Not specifically. We haven't done anything to that extent. But I would say that the significant increase in your net position in that fund is largely due to the fact that the state of Rhode Island has provided free lunch to students over the last couple of years due to COVID, and it would appear as though the amount you're being reimbursed for meals-wise is higher than what your expenditures have been.
Hi. Thank you for your presentation. Back the slide where you were talking about the fund balance.
Sure.
Just to clarify that one. So we see the total fund balance. The blue portion, does that represent things that has projects that are allocated for out of the fund balance? Or can you just explain that, what the difference between the assigned and the total fund balance, why there's a difference?
Yep, absolutely. So the, I guess, orange balance represents funds that aren't spendable, prepaid costs, inventory, anything on hand like that where you've already fronted the money but haven't utilized the asset yet. So that's what that portion is. The rest of the blue is assigned for future years' encumbrances. It's assigned for the stipends, and then it's assigned to general costs, education costs, meaning that it can't be spent on public safety or public works or a different function of government. Those are specific to education costs for the school department.
So I had similar questions, but slightly different. So with the school lunch fund, you said, and I saw you present a similar presentation to the town council when you came and did their audit presentation. And so I kind of know the answer, but I want to get a little bit more clarification about what you mean by favorable uses, for those funds. When you were saying, that we might want to look at favorable uses, I imagine that the school lunch fund has some sort of parameters around what that money could be utilized for versus what it could not.
Yeah, that's correct. There is a listing, and I can provide that, of what's considered to be an allowable cost using the federal funds versus what isn't. Certainly you wouldn't be able to unilaterally change the intent of those funds to something like special education or Title I, and they are earmarked for cafeteria and the child nutrition costs. When I said favorable, I guess what I mean to say is rather than potentially having that funding clawed back by the USDA down the road, purchasing maybe necessary equipment for the cafeteria, something along those lines would be, I'm sure, a better use of it.
Great, thank you. Are you aware of any timelines for that, or is it?
I've not seen them get involved yet. Just wanted to make sure I gave a heads up.
Yeah, thank you very much. And then another question that I had was about, on the slide where you were talking about the OPEB, you had noted a decrease, and so I just wanted some clarification on what that means.
Yeah, so there's two OPEB plans within the town of North Kingstown. The town has one plan, the school has another. The town has a trust where they fund their plan. The school does not, because the school employees, when they reach a certain age, I want to say 63 or 65, I can't recall off the top of my head, you're no longer liable for their health insurance. They're forced to go to Medicare. So rather than tie up school assets on an OPEB trust fund that doesn't have a long-term ramification, the school has historically decided to keep it pay as you go. So whatever costs come in on a year-to-year basis, you're using your budget to cover. Changes in the liability, there's a lot of reasons why, and I don't have the valuation in front of me to tell you exactly what it was. Sometimes, I think in this particular case, it was a change in assumption of discount rate. I think historically you utilized a discount rate that was 2 1/4, and then with your most recent valuation, that jumped up to, I think, 3 and change. So changes in assumptions are typically the largest swing for plans that don't have investments.
Great, thank you. That makes sense. And then just one last question. Going back to the fund balance, when you see numbers like that, it seems like there's a lot of money. And so can you talk a little bit about kind of what would be the recommended percentage? I know you mentioned 9.5%, but could you elaborate a little bit more on a district of our size, what that percentage would be? And then I know obviously this year's looks very, very big, but that did not discount the $1.2 million that was spent in this fiscal year from that.
Correct. Yeah, it's a great question, and I get asked it a lot. It's very easy to sit on the town side and recommend somewhere between 8 and 16% on what the town should have for unassigned fund balance in their general fund. School districts, it's obviously a bigger discussion on what the town thinks is appropriate, what the school thinks is appropriate. I will say, out of that $6.9 million, the 1.2 plus another $800,000 were earmarked for future years' expenses and encumbrances. So, that probably, if you take those out of the equation, that funding percentage probably goes somewhere to 5.5%. So it really is, it's hard for me to tell you what it should be. It's really dependent on what the town feels they're comfortable with and what the school thinks is appropriate to have as reserves.
Yeah, but most certainly not excessive of that 8 to 16%. It's actually less than, is what I'm hearing?
If you were to take out the amount that was earmarked for stipends, it would be lower than, I think, let's see what I had it at. Yeah, 9.5% of operating budget with that $2 million included. So if you take that out, it probably jumps down to maybe 5.5%, 6%.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Just one last question as far as, I'm a new chair of a school committee. So as far as order of operations with a presentation like this, when would you typically come to the school committee versus the town? Is it usually the order we did it this time? Or, like, what would be a normal kind of trajectory so that we can make sure that we have the timeline for next year?
Yeah, sure. There's nothing saying that we have to present with the town before we present to the school. So I'm happy to have that presentation take place earlier next year if you'd prefer. We typically need to meet with the audit committee prior to meeting with either the town or the school. So I would say that should come first, but order of operations thereafter can be at your convenience.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to make sure we were doing what we need to do. So I appreciate it. And thank you so much for all the work that you did for this and for your kind words about the staff, Gail and Elle before. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to our next item on the agenda, which is the program of studies. And so we'll invite Shivali up.
All right, good evening. Thank you very much for having me back for the program of studies. There are items in here that could have waited until the fall, but there are two exciting items, which is why I'm here tonight. And I'm also going to be joined by Rick Powell because he had a lot to do to make this happen tonight. So there are two pathway programs that we have been working on for a while at North Kingstown. Just to give you a quick history, I know the school department has been working with Electric Boat to start a pipeline at our high school, and currently we don't have the facilities to make that happen tomorrow, right? So we worked with CCRI. They have the actual facilities for this program to happen. Rhode Island Department of Education has been very, very encouraging our schools to build partnerships in order to offer some of these courses off campus so that you can still have the program happen. So while I'm very excited that North Kingstown is talking about having a future facility that this can happen in our town, we were also equally enthusiastic about getting this off the ground. So I have to give a lot of credit to Mr. Powell here. He's worked tirelessly. He's contacted and has bothered all the different partnerships we have had, and really this is a result of a lot of work he has done tonight. So I wanted him to be here. And he can answer some questions as well as I can. So just to give you a quick snapshot, we would like to launch this in the program of studies for the fall. It's important that this goes in now so we can start the recruitment process for students. The way the pathway works is eventually this pathway will become a CTE program. But right now, our goal is to get it in the program of studies, get the busing and all the other logistics figured out. And then once we have the program going, the CTE applications will open up sometimes in the fall, and then we'll be applying to have this program be officially endorsed by the Rhode Island Department of Education and the CTE board. So the way the program works, first year in 10th grade, the students take a course called Engineering Graphics right in our building with our teachers. It's mostly CAD-related programming that Mr. Powell can give you more information on. The second year is when the students in their 11th grade year go to CCRI. So they go once a week. Currently, next year, it's scheduled to be on Tuesdays from 8:30 to 12:30. So we would organize, I've talked to the transportation department. We would organize a bus. The students would report to the high school, attend their first period class, and then they would go to CCRI, and then they would be brought back at the end of the day. They would be receiving credits at CCRI in addition to earning credits on our transcript in our building. They would do that for 2 years in a row. So we have a lot of work and logistics to figure out what happens on the other days, how are we going to schedule them so they are scheduled in almost like a cohort way, so when they're off campus, those teachers are not missing half of their students in class. So we have a lot of logistics to figure out, but it needs to go into the program of studies for us to be able to start recruiting and then build their schedules around it. As you can see, these courses are skills for the students to work towards becoming a machinist, directly aligned with the need for electric board at this point. So they have been involved as we have put this program together at every stage. A lot of these courses also will count as their math credit, which will help with some of those students that may not be able to take Algebra 2 and be successful at, but they would have a pathway that they are working towards. There's a lot of certifications, as you'll see in that box. Those are all industry-level certifications. Those are employable skills as soon as they graduate from the high school. Students will be required to complete 80 hours of work-based learning, which I will let Mr. Powell talk a little bit more about. Some of the other student outcomes from this program is they will be parallelly earning 18 credits at CCRI, which can count towards their associate degrees should they decide to continue the program. So ideally, our vision is for students to be able to complete the program. In their senior year, they would already be doing internship with EB, hopefully with the plan to get hired at EB, and then while they are working at EB, they would have the opportunity to continue their education and earn an associate's degree where they can apply these credits they earned in our program. This is just labor market information that CTE board always advises us so that students, if they want to enter into the program, they can have an idea of what the income potentially could be. And I'm going to let Mr. Powell talk to you a little bit more about how the partnership with EB would work with this program.
Thank you, Shivali. With regards to any CTE program, our students have to complete 80 hours of work-based learning. With the partnership of Electric Boat being in our backyard here, they have agreed to take a minimum of 4 students in that year between their junior and their senior year for an 8-week paid internship at $20 an hour. And for the remaining students that are not going to be able to be placed directly at Electric Boat, to work with their business partners to give them an equitable internship, again, another paid internship. Assuming the student completes the internship, the student has the certifications that they would have gathered by that point. That would also allow them to do a co-op in their senior year. And as they would do a one-day-a-week co-op, in addition to taking the courses at CCRI, the students would be paid at step one wage at Electric Boat, and they would also be able to contribute to their retirement plan. And so now as you have a student who's going to be 18 years old going into the workforce, you know, they've got some good experience, those certifications, and that they would need to go get placed at any job. And they're also working towards their retirement. And again, assuming the Electric Boat likes them, it's a direct pipeline straight to employment full-time at that point.
So that is one of the programs we're requesting tonight to go into the program of studies. The other one we are working on is a welding program. So right now we do have some students that actually, you know what? I'm going to take a break to see if you have any questions about the machinist program. Sorry, before I keep moving. Okay, no questions. So at the end. Okay, awesome, great. The next program that we want to include for the launch in fall is a welding pathway. So right now our students have been taking those New England Tech courses, but they have been taking them outside of school hours independently. But we have been meeting with New England Tech to kind of create a program so they would, before they get to New England Tech, they have some skills that they can learn that can be applied towards a concentrated program. Right now, we are only looking for this to be a pathway and not a CTE program because there's a lot of requirements for CTE program that we don't have in place. But we can certainly still offer this as a pathway for our students. So we would like to include this as an opportunity for the fall. And again, in their senior year, we would organize busing for them to be able to go to New England Tech. All right, so those are the two programs, really the reason why I'm here tonight, because we didn't want to wait until another year for this exciting things to happen for our students. But while I was adding things, I figured I would add a few other things. So obviously, because of this program, the engineering graphics course is considered to be a new course that would need to be added to the program of studies. So I have information on that. So I've added that into the new program. Again, like I said, while I was coming in here, I figured I would present some of the things that need cleanup in the program of studies. So one of the things we realized, but it was too late, last program of studies, was the first bullet for seal of biliteracy, which shows up on page 17, is the Rhode Island Department of Education no longer requires that. And so we want that bullet removed, and we want to put this table that gives information on what are the different, what's the difference between students earning silver proficiency versus gold proficiency. So it's just information, but we realized that we were getting a lot of calls from parents and they didn't know, and so we figured it's good to put it in the program of studies. This is just really basic. These two courses are offered for students from 10 through 12, and we noticed that there was an error and it said 9 to 12, so we just want to clean that up. And then there is some information we wanted to add into, this was a new item we added for ranking, but we realized as questions came in throughout the year that we didn't have all the information we should have put in there. So just for information purposes, so that the community knows that we obviously don't publish rank anymore, but we do use the grade point average, weighted grade point average, to determine the val and the sal, and also the top 10 in no particular order. And that is done in the 7th semester of the students. So we wanted to just make it clear because there was tons of questions about that. So we wanted to make that information clear. And then the one other thing was we noticed, and I'm not sure why, we didn't have a clear note anywhere in the student handbook or in the program of studies of what the weights for our courses are. So again, just want to add that so it's clear and people know how our courses, the final grades are calculated. And I believe that's it. So I'll take any questions. Or comments.
Great, thank you so much. And my apologies, it was a busy week, and so I didn't get to send, I have a couple, but I didn't get to send them in advance, and I usually try to, so my apologies. Do you all have any questions that you want to ask?
Mr. Powell, I was asking my colleague here if he understood. There are a lot of acronyms here. I don't know what CNC manufacturing means. I was wondering if you could tell us.
So in traditional manufacturing, you would the tool that would be used would be a milling machine. All right, and this is one where it's a spindle and the platform is moving usually by hand by a operator. CNC is automated manufacturing, so it's computer numeric controlled. So computer numeric controlled. So at that point, there's a lot of information where the students will be doing it on the computer, drawing the plans, and then telling the machine how fast to go, how deep to go. And so once they do that, the machine's doing the majority of the work. You're welcome.
And just to add to that, when we met with Electric Boat, they told us that that's where the demand is. That's the workforce that they are desperately looking to fill. And so that's why we decided to really focus and get this pathway on the road.
Great, thank you. So one of my questions was actually related to Electric Boat. You'd mentioned two different things, and so one was about the fact that we don't have the facility here, but that there's potential in the future. And so I wanted to ask, I guess, with the CCRI option, is there a expiration on that opportunity for students going to CCRI? And then also, what is the financial commitment of the district for students attending CCRI? How does that piece work? And does EEB play into that at all?
Yeah, so those are good questions. So we have no financial obligation to CCRI because this is through the Prepare RI from Rhode Island. However, we do have to pay for transportation for students. They don't provide lunch. But we have called Rhode Island Department of Education to make sure that even though we don't have a approved CTE program, we are able to use Perkins funding to be able to offer that. CCRI, if CCRI is not able to offer a course because they didn't get approved through the ACN, at that point we would have to pay CCRI to run the course, but that can also be paid through Perkins.
Thank you. Is there any additional staff that's needed to run the pathway programs?
No, we do not.
And then I think maybe 3 more questions, apologies.
No worries.
One of the things that you had mentioned was that some of the courses would replace some of the math credits. I super appreciate pathway programs and different things like that, but I always want to make sure that high school students have options if they change their mind and different things like that. And so I wanted to make sure that the math credits that they would be receiving, still, if they changed their mind and wanted to go to college or do something, would still make them eligible.
Definitely. They can still do that. We would encourage the students to take Algebra 2 anyway and do this in addition. But I know that we always sit across some students that don't see value in that and they don't want to do that. But if they have a plan to get into the workforce, by the new secondary regulations, they now can do so only and only if they're enrolled in a pathway program. So not any student can say, I don't want to take Algebra 2, now it's a requirement. But these students will actually have a choice and an option to do so.
Okay, great, thank you. And then you had mentioned the certifications that the students would be able to have, which is wonderful. Is there any financial cost to getting those certifications, and would the students have to bear those, and could that be a barrier, or would that be something that the district would be covering?
That would also be covered through the Perkins grant.
Great. And then the last question I had was about with electric boat. What's the scope of this? I know, Rick, you had mentioned 4 students for that internship, but what do you all think is perhaps the kind of initial class that would be going through this pathway?
So the number that we're looking at in per year is based upon the capacity of CCRI, and that would be, we're looking around 12 students a year. If we obviously had our own facilities here, that could be expanded, but at this point, that's what we would be looking at.
Okay, great, thank you.
I also just want to mention that CCRI is very, very enthusiastic about this. We are going to be, if this gets approved tonight, we plan on having an informational night for parents, and CCRI will be here that night. I'm not sure about EB if they committed, but CCRI has committed to being here, and so they're invested in it. They want this to be successful. They want the partnership with us. They have told us that if your cohort goes to 24, they'll be happy to open another class through Rhode Island, through the ACN, and if that doesn't get approved, we could have a situation where one is covered and we would have to pay for the other class. But once again, all of these costs are covered through the Perkins.
Great, thank you. And my last question, I know you mentioned that students would be receiving 18 credits of CCRI credit, which is phenomenal. Would that preclude them or make them not eligible for the free CCRI if they chose to finish their degree there? I know some of that is complicated.
Do you mean like the Running Start
Yes.
program?
Well, no, not the Running Start program. All I have in my head right now is the Hope Scholarship, but the other one where they get the first 2 years at CCRI for free.
Is that the Rhode Island Promise program?
Yes, thank you.
So they actually said to us that if they do this and they continue to go, if they wanted to go back to CCRI to complete their associates after high school, that Rhode Island School Promise program does cover that.
Great.
But I don't know too much detail about it because we haven't gotten that far.
Yeah, and that's okay. I just wanted to make sure it didn't make it so that they wouldn't be eligible for that because they were coming in with previous credits or anything like that. So I just wanted to make sure that students still would have that as an option and would still be able to get that scholarship that's offered through CCRI. And it sounds like that was addressed. Okay, those are all the questions for me. Any additional questions from the two of you? Okay, great. Thank you so much. And this is on the agenda later for approval, so we will get to it then.
Thank you.
Okay, and next up on the agenda, we have the Assistant Superintendent with a presentation regarding the strategic plan.
All right, good evening. So we're going to talk about the North Kingstown School Department District Strategic Plan. So I'll get right to it. So just to give you a little overview of what we'll be covering tonight, a little bit about our expectations, what guides the plan, the purpose it will serve, the format. We're going to go through our priorities, goals, and initiatives, and then I'll obviously take your questions and feedback. So just a little overview on the process. For strategic planning, the state has passed the Educational Accountability Act of 2019, and where schools and districts are basically expected to identify strengths and areas of need of improvement. And so that is where the strategic plan is born out of. It is intended to be the guiding document for how decisions will get made, for how priorities will be identified, and ultimately how resources will be allocated. In this particular case, for this new strategic plan process, it's due to the Department of Education by June 1st. What guides the plan? So our district report card, which is made public recently, is the guideline of the plan, and also to be within the RIDE strategic plan. Okay, so this is available at the RIDE portal. The Department of Ed has identified ELA and math achievement as priorities from their strategic plan. So if any rates are under 80%, then they must be part of the strategic plan. You can see our rates in ELA and math as a district-wide number. And then other areas are allowed flexibility that districts are to choose based on data-driven needs and also local initiatives. So the strategic plan will guide discussion around improvement efforts. It's going to drive our decision making when it comes to resources and funding. It's also going to be used to foundationally serve as guidelines for the school improvement plans, and that'll be the focus of our continuous improvement. So you can see here the continuous improvement process involving setting priorities, looking at root cause analyses, SMART goals, selecting initiatives that are set to guide the goal, including funding sources, writing action steps and assigning owners, planning for progress monitoring, so on and so forth, and that's a continuous process that we'll be engaged in as part of our ongoing strategic plan. In terms of format, they're looking for basically guidance in terms of our mission and vision, our values, the summary of our needs assessment, which is rooted in data, priorities, goals, and initiatives and action steps is kind of how it's set up. And this really is, I want to kind of add on here a little bit about how this was a difference in terms of what our strategic plan, how it had been written. So obviously we had a strategic plan that I inherited in my role as assistant superintendent that was set up in a very different format. So just to, we tried to capture the essence of what our district has been focused on, but we did have to reformat it a bit to fit this new RIDE initiative, which is a new thing from RIDE. They're requiring that LEAs and schools submit these in a common format. So just to give you some clarification there. So we identified as priorities improving student academic outcomes, safe and supportive schools, vision of a graduate, and school facilities. Okay. So priority one, we identified as improving student academic outcomes, and as a goal, we set that North Kingstown students will demonstrate improvement on their achievement in the areas of math and English language arts as measured by relevant proficiency tests by at least 3 to 6% over the course of 3 years. For these initiatives, will be ELA and literacy support at both the elementary, secondary level, as well as math support at those levels. Priority two is safe and supportive schools. And for this, North Kingstown students will feel connected to their school, as evidenced by district-wide declines in chronic absenteeism and by improved survey works data related to student well-being, belonging, and engagement. For this, we'll be looking at doing building-level data analyses. We'll also be looking at our MTSS process, multi-tiered systems and supports, and reviewing the processes at each building, our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, as well as our staff wellness initiative. For priority three, the vision of the graduate, the North Kingstown School Department will establish a vision of the graduate that drives student-centered decision-making at all grade levels. Just to add a little bit to this process, this is part of the NEAS accreditation process that our high school is going to be engaged in the next couple of years. Vision of a graduate, it's tied to that high school accreditation, but it is really a district initiative, K-12, because the process involves stakeholders at all levels. And it really becomes a very rich conversation around what we envision for our graduates as we move forward and what they should know and be able to do when they are earning a North Kingstown diploma. And our initiatives for this is looking into a partnership with a consultation group that can assist us with this process. Also looking at establishing a vision of the graduate committee that is representative of various stakeholders, and eventually leading us to a performance assessment review, which will look at the kind of ways in which we are assessing student growth over time and how we are providing feedback and progress monitoring. Finally is priority four, which is school facilities. And for this, the North Kingstown will be actively constructing a new middle school, grades 5 through 8, that is thoughtfully designed to meet the needs of students and align with our vision of the graduate. So for this priority four, we're looking at, in the near term at least, stage 2 approval and passing of the bond referendum. And that is it. So I'm happy to take your questions and feedback.
Thank you so much for the presentation and for jumping right in your new role in putting this together. And I actually think that, although I know it's a new format, it seems really interesting and very clear. And so I think that's great that the the state's looking at kind of how to do that, and thank you for accommodating it. Do you all have any questions? I do have a couple. So one question that I had was regarding the previous plan. Was there anything that was in the previous plan that was intentionally not included in the revised plan?
No, there wasn't anything intentionally not included. The previous plan was dramatically different in terms of format. And so what I noticed early on was that there was just a way that whole plan was outlined and set up that was very, very different than the outline and setup that we had for this. What we did look at is there were some parts of the old plan, quite honestly, that had already either like kind of been accomplished as like almost just tasks. This was a little more broad in terms of its expectations involving initiatives. What I will say is this: when it came to the difference in these two plans, I feel like the plan we had developed was quite granular in terms of the specifics of what action steps were being taken. This one, we left a little open-ended. You'll probably see that in the initiatives under the first priority. And that was done intentionally because with the timeline we were faced with this being June 1st and the fact that I came on board relatively recently and trying to put something out there, we did want to give us some flexibility to pursue these goals and priorities with the action steps that we feel will be necessary.
Thank you. And I noticed that the plan goes until 2026, correct? And so how does the long-term planning versus what is required annually by the state, like how do those get caught? So like if you have a goal that like maybe we'll be able to achieve by 2026, like how do you set those benchmarks of what will be done annually?
So we are submitting the plan on June 1st to RIDE. I wanted to obviously come forward and get some feedback on it from the school committee. I also want to add that I also intend to, after this, sending this out for feedback to other stakeholders who were part of the strategic plan process before and getting some feedback from them. With regard to the 3-year plan, we're going to submit it to RIDE. We're going to get feedback from RIDE about what they're looking for, and we expect that they will guide us a little bit in that. As far as year-to-year goals, what we'll be doing is conducting a yearly assessment, if you will, of how we're progressing towards where we're going and adjusting as needed.
Great, thank you. And again, same apologies to Shefali. I usually try to send questions in advance, and this week was weeking, so it did not happen. A question, so I noticed on the first priority you had a quantitative metric, 3 to 6%. But on some of the other priorities that didn't exist. And so what do you imagine, will be deemed as success as far as looking at things like the survey works data or other things?
It's a great question. And we looked at we're looking at the root cause analyses. A lot of the data that came out of the survey works survey was what guided the second goal, for example. And that's a great question. I think that when it comes down to the data, there's a lot of different questions within SurveyWorks that speak to the things that we reference there, which is a sense of belonging, a sense of engagement. Chronic absenteeism is a tangible number that we can look at. We're right now at 16.7% for the district, which is a number that we can improve upon, and we will look to improve upon that number. With the other metrics, again, another piece about the SurveyWorks is that it's a bit of a different measurement based on level. So students in grades like 3 to 5, for example, is going to be a different type of question than students in grades 6 to 12. And so what we want to do is we want to look at certain sort of trend lines that we see within types of questions that speak to students' level of engagement, level of belonging, level of excitement about learning, and we want to try to improve upon in those areas, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you. And then just my last one is a comment for priority number 4 with the school facilities. Of course, we have a big priority of working towards a new middle school, and I was glad that you keyed out the stage 2 approval and the passing of the bond referendum. But I was wondering if there was any consideration taken into kind of thinking about long-term strategy regarding those projects. So kind of, where the students, if the bond passes and Knesset is going to get closed, where those students are going to go, what we would be utilizing Wickford Middle School or Davisville Middle School for in the future. And so just a comment for your consideration. You don't have to respond today, but possibly incorporating some of that into priority number 4.
Absolutely, 100%, I agree. And that will be a process that we will be looking into very deeply with a group of people.
Great, thank you. And then just last question is a process question. So I did not see this on the agenda for approval for today. Am I correct or incorrect?
Correct. So this, technically, the strategic plan is set to be it's submitted and approved by the Department of Ed.
Okay.
So as far as the communication, I felt it was important to make sure that you're updated and aware of it. And I also will be, like I said, reaching out for feedback to stakeholders, including educators, parents, et cetera. But for approval's sake, it goes to the Department of Ed.
Okay, so the deadline of June 1st, there's no issue with us not having another meeting until June 6th. That is not something that you need school committee approval on?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the clarification. Any further questions? Okay, great. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and with that, I believe we are done with our presentations, and so we will transition back up to the stage. I'm actually going to call a recess, and then we will resume in approximately 4 minutes. Thank you.
Probably. I'm not even aware of it. It just happens. You know.
Okay, thank you so much to all of the presentations, and thank you to the citizens who are here to comment. We like to do the presentations before citizens' comments so that it can form their comments, or if anyone has comments after the presentations, the committee can hear it. But thank you for your patience, as that was long, and we know time is valuable. And so it looks like we have one member of the community signed up, Richard August, so I will invite you to the microphone.
Thank you, Doc. Oops, is it on? Is it on?
I think so. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Earl. My name is Richard August. I live at 79 Apple Tree Court. I'm the chairman of the North Kingstown Audit Committee. It's too bad that Mr. Connors had to leave, but I just wanted to say that the audit committee does meet regularly during the course of the audit and set certain goals and make sure certain goals are being attained. Markham has been the town's auditors for 4 years. And frankly, this past year, I was a little concerned that they were going to hit the December 31st timeline that we set for them. But Mr. Connors and his team at Markham did a great job, and I just think the finance departments at both the school department and the municipal side of the house deserve kudos for overcoming some logistical problems during the year. So we did meet the deadline. I think did another excellent job this year. Having said that, I want to call the committee's attention to Town of North Kingstown Ordinance 2-402. That does require that the audit committee meet with at least annually with the school committee and the town council. And typically, the joint meetings would be held when the auditors present their report. This obviously didn't happen this year. And we have met with the school committee around the same time every year. I've written out this statement, and I do have my contact information. It goes on your agenda, so it's your invitation to us. And there are some areas of concern we should talk about. Perhaps the primary one is the fact that, as far as I know, as of this time, the town finance director, who is in the process of leaving anyway, but his replacement, does not have access to the North Kingstown School Department accounting system. We've asked for read-only access a number of times, but we'd like to reopen that issue at least. And there is a financial cost that goes with this. I don't know what it was this year, but 2 years ago, the town finance director has to sign a certain statement for RIDE, and he not having access to the records, he couldn't do it. So they had to get a letter of assurance from Markham, which cost $3,000 2 years ago, which the town ate. They did not come back and ask the school committee for that. But the fact that there is no access does have a financial implication. $3,000 in the scope of things is not a great deal of money, but it's just the same. It's really an unnecessary expenditure. Thank you very much. I'll give the secretary the statement.
Thank you. Yeah, you can give that to the clerk. Appreciate it. And we will be sure to follow up. Look forward to working with you. Okay. And any other citizens that would like to speak? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to correspondence. Thank you. Okay, I would like to move that we move the superintendent's report above that. Do I have a second? Second. Okay, all in favor? Okay, so we'll go with the superintendent's first, and then we'll come back to correspondence due to technical issues. Frank?
Thank you. I have some very good news tonight. I have 3 reports that I'd like to read to you and the public. The first is from Mrs. Kayaza, the choir and orchestrate director. She's proud to let us know that North Kingstown High School, quote, knocked it out of the park with the North Theater 2023 musical production of Grease. As you may know, we were nominated for many awards, but now the results are in, and we have won in 15 categories. The best part is that our students will be performing for the public on the PPAC stage and presented awards and scholarships at that time. And we'd love to see the North Kingstown community there to support our students. And these are the students who won following awards. Outstanding Sound Design, Michael Hyde. Outstanding Set Design, Michael Hyde. Outstanding Choreographer, Linda Taggart. Outstanding Dance Performer, Paige Barlow. Outstanding Supporting Performer, Isabella Rocheleau. Outstanding Supporting Performer, Will Hennings. Outstanding Supporting Performer, Alexa Dennis. Outstanding Supporting Performer, Mackenzie North. Outstanding Lead Performer, Drew Cardus. Outstanding Lead Performer, Emma Donnelly. And also awards were won in Outstanding Technical Achievement, Outstanding Orchestra, Outstanding Ensemble, and Outstanding Overall Musical. The Ocean State Star Awards Showcase is on Sunday, June 4th at 7 p.m. at PPAC. And tickets are priced at $25 to $35 and are available at school. So congratulations to Mrs. Kayaza and her performing group of Greece. Job well done. The second announcement is from Mr. Powell, STEM coordinator, and he'd like to recognize the following. He received an email from the PLTW, which is Project Lead the Way, which identifies North Kingstown High School as the PLTW Distinguished School for the 2022-23 school year. This designation is based upon the number of students who take Project Lead the Way courses in our school and their performance in the program. What makes this designation even more exciting is that North Kingstown High School is the only school at any level in the state of Rhode Island to receive this designation. So congratulations to Mr. Powell and his group. And the last announcement is from Alicia Skaggs, the Wickford Middle School art teacher. Our school and Wickford Middle School students' art is being showcased during the month of May at the URI campus at the RIDE building, which is located in Providence. We hope to have the opportunity to come and see this on May 18th from 5 to 9 to view the show in person at the URI Providence campus gallery night. And a reception will follow the annual ceremony. So congratulations to the middle school students at Wickford. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to all, and we will do our best effort to attend some of those amazing ceremonies. Fantastic. Next, we'll go back to correspondence. Mr. Case.
Okay. On May 1st, we received correspondence from Christopher Simler regarding the OPM selection for NK schools. Second. On May 5th, Renee Rice, NK School Committee announces Dr. Duva as superintendent. May 6th, Tank Organization regarding the NK Pride Parade. May 8th, Ed Ranahan on bonds. May 12th, Matt McCoy, House Bill number 6403. May 14th, Heather Murphy, Universal Lunch Resolution. May 15th, Dr. Lauren Brothers, gun at NKHS. And May 16th, Karen Martone, Universal Lunch Resolution.
Great, thank you so much. And as a reminder, we do have the school committee central email address that you can find online to correspond with the school committee if you're unable to attend in person. And so the next is routine items. So we'll start with item A, executive session. I'll disclose that there was no vote taken in executive session today. Can I get a motion to seal the minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. And then moving on to the consent agenda. Would anyone like to exempt anything from the consent agenda? Yeah, Mr. Case.
C5 and 6.
Okay, C5 and 6. Anything else? I'd like to exempt E1 and 2. Yeah, absolutely, and also D3. Okay, with those, anything else? Okay, with those removed, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And then we'll go back to C 5 and 6.
I just wanted to state that I was not present, so I'll be abstaining from that vote.
Okay, and due to that fact, we will table that item. So Joni, can you make a note and we'll put that on our next agenda? So that's the executive session minutes from May 5th and the business meeting minutes from May 5th. Yeah, because we don't have quorum to vote on it.
There wouldn't be a quorum otherwise.
No worries, it's okay. Just because of the attendance at the last meeting and the attendance at this meeting were different attendances, but quorums at both. Oh, no worries. Just want to make sure we were good. Okay, we'll move on to item D1. So I'll make a motion to approve the Bridges Math Elementary School books and consumables. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, and we'll open up for discussion. Mr. Waterman? Excuse me. I will withdraw my motion. My motion is for D3, which is the Munis technology upgrade. So I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, a second for Mr. Case. I'll open up for discussion. And now we will go to Mr. Waterman. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. I am very pleased to recommend to you KOA Hills Consulting to be awarded the Munis upgrade project. An RFP went out for this. We had 3 responses, and KOA is a partner with Tyler Technologies, a professional service partner. Their bid was, in fact, the lowest bid by a good chunk, and I am very confident that they'll be able to get this project done on time.
Great. Thank you so much for that explanation. Clarifying question. I know you had come to the committee before talking about the timeline for this project and the great importance. Can you kind of just run through that with us?
Yes, we have an upgrade date in October set with Munis already, and the KOA Hills does not anticipate any problems hitting that date. Our original date was June, and we simply had to make a request to push it the next available window of 2 dates that lined up, because we don't want to do this on a week when we're processing pay. The next alignment was in October, which is perfectly fine.
Any other questions from the committee regarding this item? Just a clarifying question, Mike, as far as where the funding for the consultants would come from, can you clarify that for us?
This funding is coming from the technology software line.
Perfect. From
FY23.
From FY23,
Our
which
current
is
fiscal year.
Okay. Does it matter that the work is going to span 2 fiscal years?
No, because we'll be starting to get invoiced on it now. So it'll be one of those projects that will roll over.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. And thank you for that information, Mike. And then we'll go to item E. So I'll make a motion. We'll do them separately. So I'll make a motion to approve the Director of Pupil Personnel contract. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second from Mr. Bridey. We'll open up for discussion. I just wanted to give the administration an opportunity if they wanted to present the contract.
Thank you. I'm happy to announce 2 appointments tonight, which are very important appointments for the school district. The first is Director of Pupil Personnel Services, and I'm pleased to announce that Dr. Rachel Santa is my recommendation for appointment as the Director of Pupil Personnel Services. Dr. Santa has been involved in the field of special services for over 30 years. She was the Assistant Director of Education at the Emily Griffin Center in Colorado. She served as Assistant Director and Director of Special Services in South Kingstown, North Kingstown, and Newport County Regional Special Education Programs. Dr. Santa currently serves as the Director of Special Services in Cumberland. Additionally, she was an adjunct lecturer at URI and currently is an adjunct lecturer at CCRI. Dr. Santa brings to the position a wealth of knowledge and experience, along with her commitment to meeting the needs of our special population. Unfortunately, Dr. Santa was unable to attend tonight because she had a very important meeting in Cumberland. I would recommend that the school committee approve my recommendation for Dr. Santa as the Director of Pupil Personnel Services.
Great. Thank you very much. Questions from the committee? Okay. Hearing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much, and welcome to Dr. Santa back to the district. Moving on, I'll make a motion to approve the high school principal contract. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second for Mr. Case, and we'll open it up for discussion, and we'll have the administration present.
Thank you. I'm proud to announce that my recommendation for high school principal is Ms. Shivali Finkelstein, who has being recommended for the position of principal at North Kingstown High School. Ms. Finkelstein has had a distinguished career as both a teacher and educational leader. For the past 3 years, she has served as the assistant principal for teaching and learning at North Kingstown High School. In that time, she has overseen curriculum, assessment, and instruction for all departments. She has also worked to provide meaningful and targeted support to struggling learners through her leadership of the multi-tiered systems and support team. She has also assumed responsibility for creating the high school schedule, overseeing the yearly development of program of studies, and assisting with the establishment of school improvement goals. Additionally, Shivali has been at the forefront of leading career-based educational programs. At North Kingstown High School, she has been instrumental in the development of the new manufacturing and design pathway for machinists. This program, being developed in coordination with CCRI and Electric Boat, will provide North Kingstown High School students with additional opportunities to earn valuable work-based experience and industry credentials in a high-demand field. Prior to coming to North Kingstown, Shivali served as a high school assistant principal in Lincoln and South Kingstown. In South Kingstown, Shivali was instrumental in the development of 5 new career-based programs that are still thriving even after her departure. Prior to her administrative experience, she was a math teacher at Shea High School for 10 years. I'd recommend for approval Ms. Shivali Finkelstein as the new North Kingstown High School principal.
Great, thank you so much for that presentation. Any questions from the committee?
Just an observation. I don't know Shivali very well, but I have been impressed every time I've seen her make a presentation. And I'm delighted to see that you made that recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Case?
I will just add that I think it's great that we're able to promote from within. I think it is an excellent choice to lead our high school in the future. And so I kudos to both Shivali and the administration for this choice.
Yeah, thank you so much. I did have a quick processing question. Could someone just kind of let the community know a little bit about how the process went for selection of the principal? Because I know we just sent out congratulations to Dr. Morris on her retirement, but I know we were prepared for this, and so just wanted to make sure that the public knew about the process.
Sure. I'm happy to help. So we had a process that started with obviously a posting, followed by a screening committee that it consisted of educators at the high school level, administrators, people in various roles, parents, and students. And we conducted an interview with the finalists. It was an extensive interview process. We had several highly capable applicants, and Shivali distinguished herself compared to those applicants, and especially given her experience here at North Kingstown High School.
Great, thank you so much, and so glad to hear that parents and students were involved in that process. So thank you for clarifying and walking us through that. Any other discussion? I would also like to make a comment that I think that I'm very excited and very happy to see both an internal candidate but also highly qualified candidate in front of us today. And I hope it brings some really great forward trajectory for the high school in the future years. So very excited for the new leadership. Any other discussion? Everybody good? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Congratulations. Would you like to say any words, Shivali?
much. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I was very thankful to the screening committee to screen my application. I'm very thankful to the central office administration, school committee, the community. I have to say, when I first started in North Kingstown as an assistant principal, this was in the midst of COVID and all of that. And in spite of that, I remember that I felt like I belonged here from the day I started. And I remember talking to faculty members and friends and saying that I love it so much in North Kingstown in the midst of all of this chaos. So I can only imagine when we don't have chaos, how much I would love it. And I absolutely love this community. The support from the community has been amazing. We have the best students, and we have an amazing staff at the high school. So I'm really looking forward to working with all of those stakeholders. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
If I may, I just want to add one comment that to add on to Mr. Mezzanotti's comments about the screening team. We also had a second interview with Shivali, with the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and Mr. Mitchell. And I could honestly say at that interview that Shivali did an excellent job. So she had to go through 2 strenuous interviews.
Thank you for that
Thank you.
addition. And congratulations again. You can also go. I know you have to get up very early, so. Okay. Although, no, we have to do, you actually probably want to stay for the next one. Okay, so I believe we hit all of the things that we had exempted from the consent agenda, and so we'll move on to unfinished business. Item A is the Program of Studies amendment. Can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the amendment as outlined in the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
That was a really impressive presentation, and something that is unique about our community is that we have such an important defense contractor. It's very important to this state, and we are in a unique position to have young people who may not necessarily want to pursue college, but can make a very important contribution to our society and get appropriate training, and I think it's a wonderful idea. So, again, I applaud Ms. Finkelstein for doing this along with Mr. Powell. I know he was here a few minutes ago, and I think it's an excellent idea.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Thank you so much. We look forward to hearing more about the pathways in the future. Okay, we'll move on to item B, which is the 21-22 financial audit. So I'll make a motion for, do we need approval on this one? I believe so, correct? To approve the presentation? Andrew.
I would vote on it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so I'll move that we, excuse me, just point of clarification, accept the presentation? Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so I move that we accept the 2022 financial/audit presentation. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second, Mr. Case. Open up for discussion. I just wanted to make one note. I know that the citizen that came today was from the NK Audit Committee. A couple meetings ago, we had mentioned that there is a school committee representative on that, and that seat is up for application. And so if anyone is interested in being the school committee representative on that, please get in touch with one of the clerks, and they can walk you through the process. It's a town committee, but there is a spot specifically designated for the school, and so an important committee on the town, and thank you for those who are on it currently and serving the town, and we look forward to working with them as well as the town council on future audits and making sure that we can make that process smooth.
Will we be extending an invitation to them to have a joint meeting that he mentioned during remarks?
Yeah, I made a note to follow up with the town council president on that for next year to figure out kind of the timing of that. I heard, of course, they'll meet with the audit committee first, but we'll make sure that we can work with both our new director of finance, new superintendent, and the town to get that on the calendar for next year. Okay. Any other discussion? Just 2 points from the presentation that I just wanted to see if we get some follow-up information on, not today, of course, but I think it probably is to Mr. Waterman. At a future meeting, perhaps before the end of the school year, can we get some information about possible, like what your all's thoughts are on the school lunch fund balance? I know that is a potential opportunity for the district, and so if possible, would love to at least hear some preliminary thoughts on that. And then there was also a recommendation about cybersecurity trainings. And so, Mr. Waterman, not to put you on the spot, but could you provide us information about kind of what we do in that area?
Absolutely. So I can tell you that as part of our renewal with the trust, there are 5 things we have to have happen. And actually, some of the trainings, some of the people at this table have been invited to starting next week in the admin building. So right now we're starting with folks with privileged accounts is the terminology they use. So we're actually targeting to be 1 year ahead. So for example, this year the requirement was all privileged accounts have 2-step verification. We've actually deployed that to all staff to have 2-step verification. So we're trying to keep 1 year ahead of the roadmap. And I can also mention regarding your first question that I know that there were a number of purchases that were made with the food, with that fund balance that haven't been received yet. We were actually just talking about the electrical demands. So some of that money has already been spent down. We just haven't received the goods to actually see the money come down. But the purchases have been made, and we've got both their vehicles that will be going out for RFP that both also need to be replaced. So we are already aware of that number and have Trish Cawley, and she gets all the credit on it. She's already come up with a roadmap on how to spend that down. I'll be happy to report in a more formal.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. And I assume that work had been being done and that I know there was needs in those areas. So just wanted to make sure that the community was aware of that. And then if we could get an official report on that, just so that we can show the town where those funds went, that we are using them for, as he said, favorable uses is wonderful. And then just my last question from that presentation, he had mentioned a vulnerability test, and so I wasn't sure, Mike, if you give us any information about if that happens in this district, and if not, if that's something that you would be interested in pursuing in the future.
So we had a fishing expedition, and I don't mean the one that starts with F, the one that's PH. That test is ongoing as we speak. The next part of the fish, so we have signed up with Department of Homeland Security for a number of vulnerability penetration tests. So those are all in the pipeline. As you can imagine, many public institutions are doing that. So we're just at a process of waiting our turn, but we actually entered that pipeline a year ago. So it was about 6 months till the phishing campaign began. That's ongoing now. Once that wraps up, we get a report, and then we'll move on to the other vulnerabilities.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Any other discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any abstentions? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. And thank you for that information. Item C, 2022-2023 school budget. Do we have anything there?
I have nothing to report, Madam Chair, on that.
Okay, thank you. Anything from the committee? Okay. We'll move on to item D, the CIP existing bond, future bond. And so I will make a motion for discussion on an update for the school bond. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second. And so we'll open that up to discussion. I would either defer to the building subcommittee chair and or members for an update on the school bond.
I'll just start and say that, on May 8th, the town council at their meeting discussed the bond question for the new school in detail. It was a very lengthy meeting that night. Lots of public comment, lots of comment from the town council itself. And they did pass the bond question. So the school has been, as far as how the questions will be put forth, the school has been combined with the public safety complex that they're hoping to build, and then the recreation center will be a separate question for that. But very appreciative for the town council for their work and that meeting that night, and for approving that bond for the new school.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for the members of the school department that came as well as the architects and folks that are assisting with that process. Any other things that people want to comment on for the school bond, Mike?
So not for the school bond, but for the CIP?
Oh,
We have a
perfect.
meeting next week with one of our architects. We've received their draft. We've reviewed it internally with the facilities department to go over the projects on that plan that they can complete. We're going to get more clarification. So we are on target for our June 30th refresh of the 5-year capital improvement plan.
Great, thank you for that update. Anything additional on the bond or?
Just a comment to follow up on Mr. Case's comments. We certainly want to thank the town council for approving the $167 million bond for the schools. For general public information, the school department will qualify for 35% reimbursement. There are also incentives along with the Department of Education. If you meet those incentives, the school department would be eligible for an additional 17%, which would get the reimbursement to approximately 52%. So the school district will work closely with the OPM and the architect to make sure we meet those incentives to qualify for the 52%. Thank you.
And if I may piggyback off of that piggyback.
Sure.
We have created a webpage specific with details on the new middle school or the proposed middle school, and it's linked right off of our main page as one of the top tabs. We'll be adding information to it. You can also see the presentations from the architects as part of the RFQ process. We've got the actual awarded we've got the RFQ along with their proposal, their presentation, same thing with the OPM. So that's going to be an area where we're going to house a lot of information. So as we evolve through that project, continue to check back. That'll be our repository.
Great, thank you so much for that. And I did just want to, I don't know, piggyback off the piggybacker, Frank, but just to mention with that additional 17%, that is something that is this year only, and so that actually expires on December 31st. So very, very important for, I think, the citizens to understand is that that additional incentive and possible reimbursements that we would be able to work towards is only for, it expires on December 31st, 2023, and so that is most certainly why this project is extremely important to us, and we made sure to push it through as fast as possible. So I want to thank the administration who worked really hard on getting the stage 1 application resubmitted and are working with the OPM and the architects to get stage 2 submitted as well. And then as a comment, just we are doing the listening sessions, which we've been doing all spring. We're intentionally hosting one at Wickford Middle School, as the clerk said, on May 23rd. And so if folks want to come and see the state of the building and walk around the facility, we wanted to make sure that community members who will be considering this question understand the current state of Wickford Middle School. And so we'll be doing the listening session there. Anyone can come and ask or talk to us about any topics, but we will also have the tour before the listening session. We will not be answering specific questions about the building that evening, but are also happy to listen, learn, and take information back to the OPM architects and the administration. So just want to make that clear as well. Anything else on this item?
I just want to also offer a special thank you to Mario Carreno from the RIDE School Building Authority, who came and spoke and answered questions from the town council. He's also answered a number of questions for the building committee and for the school committee in general regarding this building and walking us through the process. So a special thanks to him.
Great, thank you for that, and my apologies for forgetting it earlier. And also, thank you to all the citizens who have asked questions thus far. We know that this is a big decision for our community, and we want to make sure that we answer as many questions as possible. So definitely check out the website that Mr. Waterman mentioned, and feel free to send any questions along to the school committee email address, and we will work on putting those together with the plans as we continue to plan and process as we lead up to, I believe, a likely vote in November. So just for the community to know, the next step for that is the town council will be sending that up to the General Assembly before their session closes, if it has not already headed up there, as they need to approve the language that would be going forward in front of the community. Anything else on this item?
If I might, I want to echo something that Rob said, and just to add that I don't think this decision about the bond question and how it's going to be presented was an easy one for the town council. There were 2 votes that evening. I think that the members of the council tried to adhere to their beliefs and their principles. Ultimately, I think that the community is going to come out ahead by having public safety and the school bond considered together. And I know that wasn't easy, and I know that there were people that were critical of that decision, but I think it was the right decision. And I want to express my appreciation to all 4 of the voting members of the council, Mr. McCoy, Mr. Mandel, Ms. Anderson, and Ms. Page. Our president abstained from that, but it was an important vote. It was a lengthy meeting, but I'm really glad that they did what they did.
Yep. Dr. Page, just to clarify.
Sorry, Dr. Earl.
No worries. You work hard for that dissertation. Okay, hearing nothing else on this item, we'll move on, but we'll, of course, continue to update the community as we move forward on the school bond. So we will definitely see that on a future agenda. The next item up is item E. I believe we're tabling this item, if I'm correct. Okay, so we'll table that for a future meeting. We'll move on to item 4, which is policies. And so I'll make a motion to approve. Actually, point of clarification to Mr. Hennessy. So these 2 policies, I believe, are changes to existing policies, correct? And so do we need 2 reads on these policies as they are existing, or do we need?
I believe you need 2 reads.
For even if it's an existing policy?
I believe I have to
Okay.
double check your bylaws, but I believe you do.
Yeah, I believe you're correct. And so out of an abundance of caution anyways, especially because although we have quorum, we don't have a full committee, and policies are an essential part of what the school committee does. These 2 policies are going to be, I'll present a motion individually for each of them just for a first read and discussion from the committee. So we're not looking to take any action today. It will come back to the next meeting. And also the chair of the policy subcommittee, Ms. Lima, if we have any feedback, I'll bring that back as a member of that committee so that it could be worked into perhaps the next draft. And so the first, I'll make a motion for discussion for policy KDB.1, access to public records. Do I have a second? Okay, second from Mr. Case, and we'll open it up for discussion. And I'll give a quick background on this one. The changes that are being presented for this one are in accordance to, I believe, a recommendation that was made in how people can submit APRAs to the school district. Before it was not, we didn't have in this policy email as an option, and this would allow that. And I also would ask for Mr. Waterman, if you could talk a little bit about how we set up the process that went along with this policy, if you don't mind.
Yes, so we have created a dedicated email address. I believe it's APRA, A-P-R-A, at NKSD.net. And that email will go to a number of people. So if one person's out that day on vacation, there will be backup so that it will be received.
Great, thank you so much. And so the changes that you see in this policy are just to update those pieces. And so you'll see the red marks and then the cross-throughs on those different items. And then just in addition to be more inclusive with our language, thank you to the IT team. They updated the word parents to families on our website tab, and therefore we then changed the language in the policy to reflect that as such. Any comments or questions from the committee? Okay, hearing none, we will move on, and that will come back to us at our next meeting for approval. And so same thing, I'll make a motion for discussion of policy JFABB, student exchange programs. Do I have a second?
Second.
I will go with Mr. Case on that one, if you... and so I'll open up for discussion. This one is regarding our student exchange policy. The school committee reviewed it and wanted the policy subcommittee to take a look at it to make sure that we were serving all students that were coming into the district through exchange programs. And so you'll see the updated language as presented. Any discussion on this item? I will say a special thank you to the high school administration, particularly Shivali and Dr. Morris, for coming and discussing this with the policy subcommittee. We wanted to make sure that any changes that we made included their voice in collaboration, as particularly this program serves that. Also, you'll see updated language that is inclusive of students that may be living with host families in Jamestown, as they're an important partner for us. And I think we were by practice doing that, but I like to do it by policy and practice. And so we added some additional language to make sure that they were not excluded from the student exchange program opportunity. Okay, hearing no further discussion on this item, same thing. It will come back to us at our next meeting for approval. And thank you again to the policy committee for working on those two. Next item is item G. I believe we are tabling this item to a future meeting. Correct? Okay, thank you. And so we'll move on to item H. And so I'll make a motion for discussion for the athletic app update. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second for Mr. Case, and we'll open it up for discussion. I believe, Mr. Waterman, you got this one?
Yes, I am happy to report that the issue that Mr. Tober described at the last meeting has been solved for this season, but it's also been solved for seasons moving forward. So student email addresses will be a required field moving forward so that students can log in. So I'm not aware of any students who are still having login issues. I know that coaches can do direct messages to one-on-one students. I am aware that, and our school today, who's the vendor, is also aware and working on this. I was getting updates up until 5 p.m. tonight, that there is an issue with at least one team, and it could be more widespread, but we're going to start with one team and see if that solves it universally as far as a group message. So, but all coaches have email addresses, so communication is not impacted. We're just trying to give coaches, an easier way, something that's in their hands. So all coaches have email addresses. They can still communicate safely with students and parents through email. The app is not working for, again, at least that one team that we're working with right now for group messages. And just to bring back something I said a few months ago, we have not been charged. We are not being charged for this year's service, so it's not costing the district anything as we work out these bugs.
Great, thank you so much for that. Any questions from the committee? Okay, and thank you to the athletes and the coaches' patience as we work through the technical issues. I can imagine not being able to send a group message is difficult, but I know we also have the ability to communicate through email, just through regular email for group messages probably as well outside of the app. So thank you for working on that, and glad to hear that the issue with the student email addresses has been resolved. Moving on to new business, the first item is item A, and so I'll make a motion to approve the NESDEC coordinator agenda item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second for Mr. Bridie, and we'll open it up for discussion. I defer to the administration if you want to give some explanation on this.
Hello again. So North Kingstown High School is up for NEAS accreditation, and it's a 3-year process. So the process starts next year with a collaborative conference. So there are about 2-3 members of a visiting team will be in our building for about 2 days, and there will be like a self-reflection report that the coordinators have to prepare. And then the following year, there is a whole process where a whole reflective summary has to be based on the standards that NEAS requires, has to be prepared. And then the following year is the big year, 2026, where the decennial visit happens, and it's a 4-day visit requiring various tasks to be carried out. The NEAS conference that we attended, they recommended that we have 2 coordinators as opposed to 1, in order to be able to divvy up various responsibilities and writing of various parts of the report. Obviously, that's all done in collaboration and guidance with the principal. So we have requested here a 3-year stipend each year for 2 coordinators. What you have in your packet lays out specific tasks, which I know it looks like a giant packet, but that's really everything they have to do in the 3 years coming up. And I'll take any questions.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions from the committee regarding this? And so again, the request is for the stipend for two, I assume teacher level?
Teachers.
Yep, teachers to participate in the process that is outlined in our packet. And so the reason that this is before us today is as it kind of goes over the $9,000 purchasing mark because of the way that it's spread out over the years, so they don't have to come back every year and get the school committee's approval. So any questions or comments?
So do teachers just apply for this position? How will they be chosen?
So it'll be an internal posting, and then we'll have interviews, and then that's how they get.
And does the principal choose? I mean, who's on the choosing committee?
So normally, any interview team, we like to balance it with the administrators and teachers. So we'll have a teacher from the union representation, a principal, potentially another 2 teachers and 2 administrators.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just a question about the stipends. Are these equal to, I would imagine, or maybe slightly adjusted from when the last time we did the process?
So I believe last time it was only 2 years because the whole process for NEASC has changed, and it was. I don't have the exact amounts, but because I couldn't find any paper trail, but with Dr. Morse's conversation, it sounded like it was about $5,000. And so we took kind of that into consideration and broke it down into 3 years. The third year is the heaviest year, and that's where you'll see the amount is higher. But we broke it down and just divided that 5,000 into 2 people.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. And then a quick budget question as far as where the financial funding, like where would this lay in the administrative budget?
I think under stipends.
They're budgeted as stipends under the high school budget.
Okay, perfect. So that's already something that's in the 2023-2024 budget. Perfect, thank you. Any other questions?
Is that full amount in the budget, or do we have to make sure we include that in future budgets since it's spread out over multiple years?
No, that money is currently in the budget.
Okay.
Just to clarify, I think the 2500 is in the 23-24 budget, and then when we approve the next school year budget, that 25 would be in there, and then that last year we'll just need to make sure that if that line is correctly budgeted for that increase. Correct?
And it's times 2.
Yep. Thank you. And so, but doesn't, what my biggest question was, we don't need to make any adjustments for the 23-24 budget.
No.
Correct. Okay, perfect. Anything else? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Thank you so much, and good luck to the high school as they start that process. I know it is a thorough and lengthy one, so thank you for those who are going to participate as the coordinators. We'll move on to item B. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Do you want to make it for
discussion?
Okay, so we have a motion for discussion for the resolution to support the extension of deadline of school construction initiatives. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. And we'll open up for discussion. I'll start with Mr. Case.
Hi. Yeah, I had heard there's 2 pieces of legislation currently going through the legislature, which I think would be highly significant and important to North Kingstown schools, especially as we're moving forward with building a potential new middle school. I heard Senator DiPaolo present his legislation and on the overall arch of this at the RIASC annual meeting. And so I thought it would be important for us to lend our voice to support, as several other communities have done that as well, and send our voice to the legislature and to the leadership of the state to let them know that we're supporting this. And I don't think I need to read the whole thing, but the kind of the gist is the important parts of this is our base aid right now, housing aid for new construction, it starts at 35%. And this legislation, should it be passed and go through, would increase that to 40%, which in regards to this new building would be millions of extra dollars to help with that. The other part of it would also extend the deadline for the incentives, the extra incentives that we would receive from December of this year to June of next year. And I think that would be a highly valuable thing for us. So it allows us to not have to compete as much with other schools now that we know that there are 23 LEAs in the state trying to build new buildings and rushing to the end of the year. In addition to having to compete with other schools, we'd have to compete with just other regular construction going on. And this just gives everyone and other towns a much greater opportunity to make sure that this gets done. So I hope that the committee will support this and that we can send this off to the State House and to the Governor's office to let them know that we are one of the towns supporting this legislation, from Senator DiPaolo and from Representative Cortvryn in the House. And I did have the opportunity to speak to both Senator Valverde and Senator DeMario, who both support the Senate legislation going through and think that it would be very important for the town. So,
great, thank you so much. Any further discussion? Mr. Bridey?
I'm going to vote to support this resolution. There is, as we were having discussions with potential superintendent candidates, I know that this was a topic, and there's been enormous pressure on this community and on this committee and on the building subcommittee to get this done. But I've always been nervous about deadlines, and I certainly hope this legislation passes, because I think, for all the reasons that Rob has articulated, it would be nice to have a bit of breathing room. But I don't think that we ought to let up one bit. We have to keep pushing on this as hard as we can, as if it were December 31st, regardless of whether or not this passes. So.
Great, thank you so much for those comments. I echo both of your comments, and I will add, I think I'm very happy to see that this is getting looked at. Obviously, kind of just where we are in education and with buildings across the state, there's a great need to have improvements. But also, we are in a time where we've had great inflation and costs of things, and I think, for towns to be able to realistically build these buildings that our students deserve, we do need to support this at the state level, with the reimbursements in the base reimbursement as well, or the additional reimbursements in the base reimbursement. So I also will be supporting this and agree with Mr. Bridey that I think we should assume that December 31st will stay, and I appreciate all the work the administration's doing to work towards that deadline. But I definitely think that supporting this through this resolution is important. Any further discussion?
So I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution as presented.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries, and I will sign that, and we will get it up to the State House as soon as possible. Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is item C. Do I have a motion?
Dr. Earl, I will move that we adopt the North Kingstown School Committee resolution regarding healthy school meals for all and universal free school meals.
Second.
Okay, thank you so much. So we will open up for discussion. Mr. Bridey, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, thank you. This was a topic at last week's Wellness Committee meeting. Dr. Earl, I know that you attended that meeting. To be honest with you, I was somewhat surprised at the pushback to this. There were several people during public comment or on the committee who expressed concerns primarily about food waste, which is certainly a legitimate concern. And, there was some indication that during the pandemic, when food was more broadly available at no cost to members of the student body, that there were some problems that were attendant with that. All that said, and I have respect for members of the community who feel that way. We've heard from people who have written to us as well. I just don't see this as anything other than a positive for the state of Rhode Island. I think that there needs to be, frankly, an adjustment in the perspective that people have about what constitutes a public school education. And, the days when people brought their lunch in a brown sack That's just not the case. And there are far too many people, even in this community, who may not be getting enough to eat when they go to school. And I don't see how students can be effective if they haven't had a decent meal. What's more remarkable is that this is a statewide issue. You had indicated, Dr. Earl, that you were curious about what our local delegation might feel about this, and I had the opportunity to communicate with both Senator DeMario and Senator Valverde, and both of them are completely in favor of this. In fact, Senator DeMario is a co-sponsor of the legislation in the Senate. I certainly hope it passes, and I see absolutely no harm and potentially great benefit to our community if we lend our support by way of passing this resolution.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Any further discussion? I would add, I definitely appreciate the community members that share concern about food waste, and I can imagine that the administration, as well as Trish Cawley, if this did pass, can do some very thoughtful education with the students about food waste and the importance of not wasting food and not taking food that they're not going to eat. I know a lot of the concern came out of the pandemic, and I think that's a good example of how a program like this can benefit students, but also, it was obviously a very challenging time for all. And so I do very much hear that, but I will be voting to support this resolution, as I think it is very important for us to support the legislation that is potentially looking at this. Any further discussion?
I will just add that I'm also planning to support this. I think the pandemic did show a lot of areas for improvement that we need. I know other school systems in regard to food waste and things, they developed refrigerator programs for students who might need to have extra food to take home and other things like that was done discreetly. And so there are some venues and areas for using that extra food, if there is any, that might be able to still be used and viable for students that might need it. So I think that this is a very important legislation, and I'm glad to see that we're going to support it, it sounds like. So.
Okay, great. Any further discussion? Any comment from administration? Everybody good? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. And same thing, we'll get that signed and up to the State House. Thank you. So moving on to reports. The first one is a special report, and so I'll make a motion we don't even, it's not under report, so we'll have the disposal notification report.
Yes, there are 2 buses that are no longer able to be used. All usable parts have been removed from them, and we are recommending disposal.
Okay, thank you. Mike, do you need approval on that? Or okay, so I'll make a motion to accept the disposal notification report and recommendation. Do I have a second? Okay, any further discussion? Okay, and thank you for, taking anything that is valuable from those vehicles and their service to our students in the district. And so hearing no further discussion, all those in favor? Okay, right. Okay, so motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to, is there anything for financial reports?
No.
Okay, and then moving on to the subcommittee reports. The first one is the policy subcommittee. In addition to the 2 ones that we are looking at today, the committee is also looking at both the building usage one, and so thank you for the administration that's been working with the policy subcommittee on that, as well as the anti-harassment policy that is part of the recommendations that we have received to kind of try to make one comprehensive policy that will kind of bring together a variety of others. And so I will if I believe, I was not sure if Ms. Lima had sent any additional comments, but if she did, I'll make sure to forward them to the committee from the policy subcommittee. But they're doing some great work, and we are working through updating some of the policies, and then, of course, the creation of the new policy. And so if the school committee or community has any questions or clarifications that they'd like on the committee's on the school's policies, that is the appropriate place to send them, and we can get them on future agendas. Item number 2 is the CLAC subcommittee. Did the school committee liaison send anything for that one? Okay. I'm happy to, unless you want to, Joni. You want the mic back? Here we go.
So the CLAC had a meeting on May 9th at the North Kingston Public Library at 7 p.m. The minutes are over 20 members were in attendance with teachers, many parents, administrators, students, and a school committee member. They welcomed Kerry Collins of Southern Rhode Island Regional Transition Center, Natalia Matoya from the Office of Rehabilitative Services, and Susan Haywood from the BHDDH. The panel presented on transition through the high school and post-high school years. Information was given through a presentation. Packets and brochures were also available. Presenters also readily shared their contact information for further support. There was also an Assistant Director of Pupil Personnel Services update and promising interviews for the PPS Director. And the new superintendent, Dr. Kenny Duva, will be starting on July 1st. There was an ESY update. 150 students were referred to attend at Fishing Cove from 8 to 11 and at North Kingston High School from 9 to 12. Times are staggered to make busing work. There was an SEL update. Still a big focus with this in mind. There are new positions for mental health in the district. And one last thing, discussions around one larger middle school. They discussed the building committee, and they can be contacted by Kendra, spoke about accessibility and equitable situations. She also spoke about special ed programming, needing larger spaces. Building committee meetings would be the best people to voice concerns to about new spaces and program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And with the committee's blessings, I'd like to go back. Ms. Lima did submit something from the policy subcommittee, so do you all mind if I go back to item 1 and just read what she had submitted? Okay, it is short. And so Ms. Lima had submitted the policy subcommittee met on 5/9/23. We are recommending changes to the access to public records request, which we saw today, policy based on recent advisory opinions issued by the Rhode Island AG. That policy, along with proposed revisions for the foreign exchange program policy, which would allow for the foreign exchange students to receive a NKSD diploma under certain conditions. Both are on the school committee agenda for this evening. We also had further discussion on the use of buildings and field policy as we look for ways to balance supporting our community serving nonprofits with ensuring funds to maintain for upkeep of the buildings. Our next meeting will be on June 14th at 5 p.m. at the Central Administration Building, and we will be reviewing the new non-discrimination/anti-harassment policy one last time in the subcommittee before sending it to the school committee for review. Thank you. And then lastly, we have item 3, subcommittee report for the wellness subcommittee.
Thank you, Erin. The committee met last Wednesday. There were 2 items well, there were multiple items, but we managed to get through 2 on the agenda. The first one we've already addressed, which was Healthy Meals for All, and the resolution that was just passed a few minutes ago. The other item, and one that wound up with some fairly spirited debate, is the choice of school health curriculum starting next year. Dr. Jody Clark has been working on this for months, if not longer. She made an excellent presentation setting out the timeline of how the policies have been presented to the community, including a forum in February. Our meeting last week was for the purpose of discussion about which policy seems to be most fitting for this community. There seems to be strong support from Dr. Clark as well as multiple members of faculty who teach this subject for the Health Smart ETR curriculum. There is some pushback on that from some members of the community, and that was part of our debate that day. Regrettably, we did not have a quorum at the conclusion of the meeting to vote on it. And I've looked at the statute, and I believe others have as well, and I think that we should have a vote from the subcommittee. It will not bind this committee, but there should be a vote as to which curriculum to be recommended to this community. And I'm anticipating that we are going to schedule that meeting in early June before our next full school committee on the 6th of June. That's what I have to report, and I want to thank Dr. Clark and the 4 teachers that gave of their afternoon to come in and talk to members of the committee. I don't think it was an easy discussion, but I think that they presented their views fairly, and I think that members of our committee as well as members of the public had an opportunity to review this and to comment upon it. And I think that's the essence of what we're supposed to be doing. So we'll look forward to that subcommittee meeting and then presenting this to the full committee here.
Great, thank you so much for that update. And then just 2 points, if you don't mind, Tom. One, I believe that the presentation that Dr. Clark presented is available for community members to review.
Thank you for reminding me of that. If you go on to the North Kingstown website, I believe you can find the link that will provide you with that PowerPoint presentation. And I would encourage anybody in this community who has a concern about healthcare curriculum to take a look at that. I also wanted to note that Mr. Mezzanotte was present at that meeting and did an excellent job of pointing out some discrepancies between the 2 curricula, and we were very fortunate to have him there. He noted, in fact, I think the absence of any curriculum discussion in the Glencoe curriculum about social media, which is obviously a very important topic in this day and age. So thank you again, Rob.
Thank you for that. And just one other clarification on that. I believe we had a technical difficulty, if I'm correct, Mr. Waterman, with the recording of that meeting. And so I just wanted to, I know, within accordance of the Opens Meeting Act, all of our subcommittee meetings are open to the public, and people are welcome to join us and sit in the audience. But we have continued kind of the practice of trying to record them when possible. But I did want to just clarify that we had a technical issue, I believe, with that recording, unfortunately.
Yes, so those meetings are recorded on an iPad that has an external microphone. The external microphone was not turned on, so I don't believe there's any sound at that meeting, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I believe you all tried to recover it, but we were unable to, correct?
We did. We did load it into one of our softwares. If there was a little bit of audio, we would have been able to boost it as much as possible, but nothing was picked up, unfortunately.
Great. Thank you so much for that, and thanks for the effort on trying to recover that audio. And again, it is our intent to try to record those, but sometimes we do have technical difficulties, and so the best way to see subcommittee meetings or school committee meetings are, of course, in person, but we will try to continue with, at the mercy of technology, to provide that to the community as well. Okay, anything else for subcommittee reports?
Just want to add that we did generate minutes from that meeting, so they reflect, I believe, as best I could, the tenor of what took place.
Great, thank you very much. And so I believe that brings us to the end of our agenda, and I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.